Today I'm going to try to draw this bicycle here in Krakow, Poland, and I can't believe it's taken me this long. A bicycle is such an obvious, pretty cliche subject, and I've actually been looking for a good one since starting this, if you can believe it. You would think it would be easy. They're obviously everywhere, but the problem I've had is that they're usually inconveniently placed, like right next to the road or on a sidewalk with too much foot traffic, or they're bunched up with a dozen other bikes, and that's just awful. I've been looking for a unique looking bike like this one. It's kind of nostalgic, I guess, in a spot where I'd have, a little space, even if I am in the video still pretty close to a lot of said foot traffic. It's behind me. So yeah, this one checked all the boxes, and even a bonus box with all that dappled light moving throughout the video. I am a sucker for that, and I hope you appreciate it too. Anyway, I think I lucked out with this reference, so let's find out if I do it justice. As you can see, barely, I'm back to these light exploratory lines. I'm sketching in the general shape, trying my best to be careful not to get anything too out of whack in the beginning. However, it's clear I need some practice with shapes because circles are tough. I do hear what I said I shouldn't do in the plants in the glasses video from a couple of days ago, and that is going over the same line again and again, adding little layers of ink. It's messy, it's ugly, and while my approach is to find the right circle in there somewhere, at this point, I'd prefer a wheel that looks kind of bent out of shape than these not so faint mistakes that I'm making, because that's what they really are. They're proof of my inability to confidently draw some wheels. And that, I would say, that's the first of many little errors I make over the course of this drawing. While yesterday's drawing was complicated in a not very nice way, and we'll leave it at that, this one is complicated in an enjoyably challenging way. I've heard that bicycles are famously difficult at first, or maybe forever, I don't know. I guess since there are so many micro proportions within the greater shape, and that's certainly true here. I'm feeling the pressure, but it was fun to give it a shot nonetheless. Also, just like those plants and glasses I drew, I'm focusing all of my attention on the bicycle itself. I'm going to ignore that window, the texture of the wall, and especially, as much as I love the way it looks, all the dappled light. I couldn't begin to guess how I'd go about drawing all that. I understand vaguely that it's just some blurred out bunches of leaf silhouettes, but with how low detail my drawings already are, I'm not sure if it would even be possible, even if I knew how to add in correctly rendered dappled light without it looking just like a tree. I can look at the reference and kind of understand the shapes, but yeah, without a ton of extra shading in the rest of the drawing, I wouldn't know where to start with that. Maybe I should find just a wall with dappled light for a reference and see what I can do with it. And that also makes me think about what the light is doing to the bike and just how nuanced it is. As you watch it pass over different parts of the bike, just try to see how many little dark patches it creates. Ugh. Yikes. I have so far to go, but also not yikes, because having so far to go is maybe a bit of my shtick. Would these be as interesting if I was just gracefully drawing perfect renditions and talking about that process? I mean, maybe, but I'd like to think that you're kind of on the journey with me this way. You get to see just how much I suck, and maybe together we'll watch progress occur. Let me know about that, though. Are you having a nice time watching these, or would it be just that much better if I was, well, that much better? Leave a comment. Also, here's your reminder to subscribe to the channel. I'll say it now because I'm pretty sure that you're not always watching till the end, which I think is technically against the terms of service, but I won't tell as long as you subscribe. Okay, now that I've said it, I won't say it again at the end, I promise. Okay, so even though that rear wheel is and will continue to be a thorn in my side, some of the other parts are turning out not too wacky. The frame of this bike is actually quite strange to me. I don't know about you, but this is a weird design. But that turns out to be a good thing for me. I don't really, I don't at all have the mental map of how a normal bike looks to fall back on here. So this one is forcing me to really take it in individually. I'm really trying to be patient with the observation part of the process. Sometimes it can be difficult because it kind of fits into the whole Dunning-Kruger effect thing, where the more you learn, the more you find out how much you don't know. I'm sure you've heard of it. That's obviously a crude explanation if you haven't, so go look it up if you're interested. But that's how observation can feel to me. When I start, I'm trying to first take in the overall composition. I'm solidifying the framing in my mind, focusing on the things that originally drew me to the subject or the scene. As I do that, there's this voice in the back of my head that starts trying to convince me that I've seen enough, that I get it already. But as I look longer, things I deemed as trivial or even outright didn't notice, which is more often the case if I'm honest, lift out of the rest of the reference. It's like they expand outward, calling attention to themselves. So the longer I look, the more I see, and that's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's overwhelming. Now I have all this data to parse, and being so new to this means I have trouble deciding what to include or exclude. On the other hand, with all of this visual information essentially calling out to me, I'm simply better prepared to draw it. In the case of this bicycle, I gained a better understanding of the angles of the frame, the proportions, like the seat, to the basket, to the tires, and all the tiny details like the light, the fender, and so on. And that came from sitting there and looking at the thing. I'm sure I look like an idiot, or maybe people think I just really love bicycles. Actually, hopefully they don't think I'm going to steal it. All right. I've added a negligible amount of shading here in an attempt to bring the bike off the paper a bit. All of those components are cylindrical, obviously, so adding some shading here and there to suggest that would be ideal. However, I'm still not really in that mode right now, as I've spoken about, and I think in large part that's down to drawing in real life. I can see in the reference video which parts are darker, but man, when I'm sitting there, my eyes just adjust to all of it. And that throws me right back to relying on my understanding over my perception, which I really don't want to do. That being said, this whole thing, meaning the drawing process as a whole, but more specifically drawing this bicycle, will be an iterative process. I can see the unrefined, I don't know, ghost of a bike in this drawing. It's there, I just have to work on bringing it out or exercising it, you know, like a ghost, or maybe that's demons. I don't know. Anyway, you know what I mean? Slowly, I'm trying to draw. Slowly, what I'm trying to draw will appear more and more, and it's just a process, and I have to trust it. Okay, you can see that I'm really starting to notice the flatness of the drawing, so I'm trying to darken some of the more shaded parts. I'm adding small details that are nice, but at the end of the day, they don't make that much of a difference because the bicycle itself lacks some life, unfortunately. The proportions are pretty clearly out of whack, just enough to be noticeably uncanny, and I say the front wheel and the handlebars are especially odd. It's a little ambiguous which direction they're facing. Okay, so here we are. And here we have a sad, melty looking bike. Like I was saying about the handlebars, it almost looks like the bike is facing away because that front wheel is a little bit smaller when actually I think it should be a little larger than the rear wheel. So it looks like it's facing away, but there are some details that suggest that it should be pointing forward. Whatever, there's a lot wrong here, but like I said, this process will be iterative. We'll get there in time. Plus, I don't outright hate it like yesterday's. So that's a step up for sure. All right. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.